Hello, welcome back to my channel, to EE Talks. I'm EE, and in this video I am going to give a brief end of semester update and give you a little bit of information about a commonly heard about but maybe not commonly understood diagnosis of ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So, thanks for joining me in this video. The first thing I want to touch on, like I said, is an end of semester update. So, I am currently in my 13th week of a 16-week semester. I'm in my second semester of school, and something that I have been feeling and am hearing from other members of my cohort is once we hit this 12-week part of the semester, things start kind of shifting. It's like there's a weird magical thing that happens, or at 12 weeks, we just start feeling done. And a lot of us feel, and this is also not just people in my cohort. I have friends that are in grad school, in other states, and I've heard it from them as well. And at this 12 weeks, it just feels like we should be, the semester should be closer to just a 12-week semester, not a 16-week semester. And I started feeling weird and kind of done at the 12-week mark of my first semester. And I was like, oh shoot, the typical grad school thoughts come to your head. Am I not cut out for this? Why am I feeling this way? And then I started hearing it from some other people, oh yeah, even my mentor said that every semester at 12 weeks, she starts just kind of feeling done with that semester and ready to move on. And I hear it from my other cohort members too. So I wanted to just begin this video by saying that if you are currently in grad school and you experience things like this, at 11, 12, 13 weeks, you're just done or bored or burnt out or just ready for your break and the next classes to begin. Or if you're thinking of starting grad school in the future, just know that this is something that some of us do experience. And if you do, it's totally normal. Hopefully one day semesters will be shorter. I'm sure there are some programs out there that are more forward thinking or newer that have tested and found out that 12, 13 week semesters are more conducive to consistent learning and engagement. But just wanted to put that out there in case anyone watching this feels this way at some point or will feel that way. So anyway, let's get into the educational part of this video, which is talking about ADHD. I wanted to make this video because I feel as though ADHD is becoming very diagnosed, especially even in adults. I spend a lot of time on Reddit, and they talk about ADHD and other neurodevelopmental disorders being diagnosed as adults a lot on that website or forum or whatever you want to call Reddit community. And so it's becoming pretty prevalent. I think growing up for me, I heard it a lot, among kids. Kids were being diagnosed really young and getting put on Ritalin and stimulants. And then in college, if you could get your hands on Adderall, you were, going to do well with that stimulant. Something that I will say that I kind of knew about, but that was reaffirmed to me in class a couple of days ago, was that for people who are diagnosable for ADHD, stimulants will help them focus. So that's not always the case for everybody. I don't think that is typical, but that will look like somebody with this diagnosis will use cigarettes to help them focus. They will love their coffee. They will definitely need their coffee to help them focus. And then the prescribable stimulants, which for some people will or won't make them focus, but for people with this type of ADHD brain, it will definitely help them focus. So, and focus is really the number one marker of this, diagnosis, is really mostly just difficulties with focus. And I'll go into like a little, it's more than just that, but a lot of it is the focus aspect that is struggled with. So one thing that I'll say quickly is that ADHD looks different over the course of the diagnosis. So what that means is somebody who's 5 years old with ADHD will look a lot different than someone, the disorder will look a lot different than someone who's 55 or 60. They still will have issues, but the issues will look a lot different. And someone who's 5, it will look like in school, they're interrupting, they're yelling out, a lot of behavior issues, they can't stay in their seat. For someone who's older, it will look like while they're completing work projects, leaving out details or making a lot of mistakes, having difficulties organizing themselves, just doing like the administrative, logistical things for their lives, just completing tasks, just having difficulty with that because they're distracted and they can't keep the focus in their mind to complete these adulting tasks. So criteria, I'll just touch on it a little, give a little introduction about the diagnostic criteria for ADHD if you're interested. So symptoms must present before the age of 12. So if you are, 15, 16 or an adult and thinking like, oh man, I'm having the worst time focusing or distracted, may not meet criteria for this diagnosis because it's neurodevelopmental. It happens early on and you see it early on, and so the symptoms are going to be observed early on. Usually even like by the age of 5, you notice these kids just kind of think and manage themselves differently than a lot of the other kids. And another thing is there must be 6 symptoms of hyperactivity and inattention. The symptoms must present, in addition to before the age of 12, they must present in at least 2 settings. So if these troubles or difficulties are only seen like at school, for example, that could be diagnosed as something else. It could be due to something like a learning disability or like dyslexia or something like that. So it must be present in the different settings that the child is existing in. And it must cause impairment for the kid. So that's true of pretty much all these psychiatric diagnoses. They must cause impairment for them, just in functioning through the world. It makes things very difficult. So there are 3 core elements of the ADHD diagnosis for you to think about if you're trying to conceptualize it. The first one is inattention symptoms. So inattention can look like a couple things. It's categorized by like us psychology people 2 ways. The first one is difficulty selecting what to attend to. So that would mean like kind of jumping from this to that. And the second one is difficulty sustaining attention. So that just means when you sit down to do a project or like read a book, even a kid, it could be like nearly impossible to have the focus to just read the book, complete the homework assignment, things like that. Distractibility, difficulty organizing themselves. So a kid, with ADHD will not only forget to do their homework, but they'll forget their agenda book at school every single day with the list of homework assignments. So it is, like I said, it does cause significant impairment with these people when they're trying to complete things in their daily lives. The second element is hyperactivity symptoms. So for a child, this will look like difficulty remaining seated, something to describe this diagnosis, this might even be in the DSM, is this feeling of being on the go as if driven by a motor. So if you have ADHD or you are close to someone, that probably rings true for you. These people will just always seem like there's a pressure to just move and go and the next thing. ADHD can be a dangerous disorder for kids. So we were taught that in class because, for a kid, so with ADHD, it might, look like them jumping from the back of one couch to like another couch at home, where another kid with a differently developing brain might see the distance between these two couches and say like, no, let's do something else. But this kid, like, the focus to think through that decision and the distance isn't there. And so they take more risks, and they do end up being injury prone for sure. And injury prone, I was taught the injury proneness can really weave its way through the whole lifespan, not just when they're small. Let's see what else I want to share. Oh, something that I will say that, so these people, the way that those with an ADHD diagnosis, the way that their brains work, it makes these things that, it makes doing things that for a typical brain might seem easy, but they are using a lot more brain power just focusing on getting through, if they're cooking a meal, just the recipe, the process. They're using a lot more brain power to complete it, or even something like getting through a conversation with their boss. So because they have to use more brain power, we all have a limited amount of brain power throughout the day. If you work a long day, by 5:30 your brain's done. You're ready to just turn it off, scroll on your phone, watch TV, do nothing. And so this will look like that these people needing breaks. If they're kids, they'll need breaks in school because they're just using so much brain power to try to focus on these tasks that for other people would just be kind of routine. And anything else I want to add? There's issues with executive functioning, which I kind of just touched on. So executive functioning is basically the brain's ability to do adulting things, so complete tasks. Some executive functions that are interrupted by ADHD are inhibition. So that could even look like suppressing irrelevant information if they're trying to understand something that's being explained to them, or if they're trying to explain something to a person. Working memory can be tricky as well. Working memory is basically temporarily holding information in your brain for relevant tasks, and that could look like even doing math in your head. And so that executive function is tough for these people, as well as something called cognitive flexibility, which is switching between different tasks. And the last thing I'll say is about emotional dysregulation. So especially kids or, teens, adults, people with the ADHD diagnosis, it's known that they have issues with emotional regulating. So that could look like a kid having a tantrum in the middle of class, and the kids around them are like, dude, what are you doing? Like, can we just move on? The issue is actually not that they feel these emotions more intensely. The issue is that they have less control over them. They have an issue regulating themselves. So, if you have a really emotional feeling, you can tell yourself like, okay, not right now, like later, or like it's not appropriate. But for those with the ADHD diagnosis, that process is very difficult for them. Just like they have difficulty regulating their focus for, regular tasks, that does carry over to emotional regulation. So I will end the video here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the many, many people who watch these videos. And if you're If you have any thoughts, please leave a comment below. I would love to hear from those who watch the video. If you have any feedback or anything that you would like me to talk about my grad experience, please let me know. And thank you for watching. Bye.